ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, welcome everybody. Today we are going to drink the nectar from the Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 1.4.8. This is a very beautiful verse, a very instructive verse. So let's recite the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakte Bhavati Naishtiki. Sagodohanam matram hi graheshu grahamedhinam avekshate mahabhagah tirthi kurvam stadashramam. Sagodohanam matram hi graheshu grahamedhinam avekshate mahabhagah तीर्थी कुर्वं तदाश्रमम्। सगोदोहनमात्रं हि ग्रहेषु ग्रहमेधिनाम् अवेक्षते महाभागः तीर्थी कुर्वं तदाश्रमम्। Can I request a few devotees to recite the verse, please?
Hare Krishna. Swagodohana matram hi graheshu grahamedhinam avekshate mahabhagas tirthir kurvam stadashramam.
Sagodohanamatram hi graheshu grahamedhinam avekshate mahabhagah tithi kurvam stad ashramam.
सगोदोहनमात्रं हि ग्रहेषु गृहमेधिनाम् अवेक्षते महाभाग तीर्थी कुर्वंस्तदाश्रमम्.
Any one devotee would like to recite the equivalents and the translation, please?
Sah I Sukadeva Goswami. Go dohan matram. Only for the time of milking the cow. He certainly graheshu in the house. Graha medhinam of the householders. Avekshate waits. Mahabhagah, the most fortunate. Tirthi pilgrimage. Kurvan transforming. Tat ashramam, the residence. Translation: He, Sukadeva Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked, and he did this just to sanctify the residence. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Prabhu, or any other devotee would like to read the purport?
Purport: Sukadeva Goswami met Emperor Parikshit and explained the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was not accustomed to stay at any householder's residence for more than half an hour at the time of milking the cow, and he would just take alms from the fortunate householder. That was to sanctify the residence by his auspicious presence. Therefore, Sukadeva Goswami is an ideal preacher established in the transcendental position. From his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of Godhead should learn that they have no business with householders save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Such asking of alms from the householder should be for the purpose of sanctifying his home. One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions and thus become subservient to worldly men. For one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. Hare Krishna.
His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So this is a very beautiful verse, very powerful verse, very instructive verse. This glorifies Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami is a very exalted Mahabhagavata. He is one of the 12 Mahajans. 12 Mahajans are those personalities who knows the principles of religion very well. They are all great devotees of the Lord. And these 12 Mahajans include the great personalities like Vyasadeva, Narad Muni, Lord Shiva, Yamraj, and a few others are there. So Sukadeva Goswami, in the previous birth, he was a parrot, but he was not an ordinary parrot. He was the parrot in the service of Radharani. So when Radharani was about to wind up her pastimes from this material world and ready to go back to Golok Dham, she called Shuka. Shuka means parrot. So she called Shuka and said, I am going to go back to Golok and you stay here for preaching. So Shuka said, Mata, I can't bear the separation from you. So I would like to go back with you to Golok Dham and be there in your service. So Radharani insisted, no, you have to stay here. But Shuka said, how will I bear your separation? So Radharani said, you find out a place where Harikatha is going on, stay there. And if you do so, you won't feel the separation from me. So Radharani, she disappeared and Shuka started wondering where Harikatha is going on. So finally he reached Kailash Parvat and there Lord Shiva was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Parvati Devi. So Shuka, he sat on one of the branches of the tree under which Lord Shiva was reciting Bhagavatam to Parvati Devi, and he started hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva was very much engrossed in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And here Parvati Devi, after every few minutes, would say, Lord Shiva know that she is hearing and understanding what Lord Shiva is speaking. But after a while, she slept and Shuka, he did not want the katha to be stopped, so he started making the sound the way Parvati Mata was making the sound. So Lord Shiva, he continued reciting the Bhagavatam, and when he completed the recitation and wanted to give a viram, he looked at Parvati and asked her, "Did you understand it? Any questions?" And Parvati ji woke up and she begged forgiveness. And she said, "My Lord, please forgive me. I fell into sleep." So Lord Shiva said, "All right," but Lord Shiva wondered from where the sound was coming out. Who was making this sound? So Lord Shiva, he looked around and he found the Shuka was sitting on one of the branches of the tree. So Lord Shiva was very much angry and he wanted to catch Shuka to find out who is this personality. But Shuka was in fear and he started running and running. And finally he reached the cottage of Vyasadeva, where he was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to his wife. And while the wife was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, she yawned for a second. And Shuka said, "This is the best place to save himself from the anger of Lord Shiva." And he went into the mouth of the wife of Vyasadeva. And that's how he entered into the womb of the wife of Vyasadeva. And therein, Sukadeva Goswami stayed for 16 years. And finally, Vyasadeva started wondering what's happening, why the baby is not appearing. And then he talked to the baby, and baby said, "I don't want to come to this material world. Because if I come to this material world, there is a risk that I'll be affected by Maya. I'll get lost in this material world." So Vyasadeva ji said, "Son, you come out from the womb. I assure you that you won't get affected by this material world's Maya." So the Shuka, the baby said, I don't trust you. You are my father. So you have an affection for me. So naturally you would like me to come out from the womb." So then Vyasadeva ji, he went to Dwarkadham and talked to Krishna that, "Krishna, this is the problem." And then Lord Krishna himself came and gave the assurance to Shuka that you please come out from the womb. I assure you that you won't be affected by the Maya of this material world. Sukadeva Goswami, he appeared in this material world after having stayed in mother's womb for 16 years, and he had the assurance from his father, who is the incarnation of Krishna. He had an assurance even from the Lord himself that you won't be affected from the Maya of this world. But imagine what Sukadeva Goswami did. As soon as he appeared in this material world, he started running away from the house. He started running into the forest. And he was running and running, running and running. So he is running, and behind him, his father is running. And at one point, both son and father, they were passing a river wherein young girls were taking bath naked. So as soon as the young girls saw Sukadeva Goswami, they were surprised and they did not pay any attention and they did not react at all. But when they saw Vyasadeva ji, the girls, they covered their bodies. So when Vyasadeva ji noticed it, Vyasadeva ji was surprised that why the girls covered their bodies when they looked at him, though he is an elderly man and dressed up very well, but they did not cover their bodies even after seeing a 16 years young boy who was almost naked, just wearing a kopin. So Vyasadeva ji approached the girls and asked them that, why did you do so? And still you covered your bodies, and this young boy who is naked, you did not cover your bodies. So then the girls replied very beautifully. The girl said that this young boy does not distinguish between man and woman. he sees everybody as a soul, whereas you make a distinction between man and woman. So Vyasdev ji, he was even more surprised. He said, how can you say that I make the distinction between man and woman? So the girls replied that when this young boy was passing the river, he did not pay any attention to anything around him. He was completely absorbed in his trance, indifferent to what's happening around him. But when you were passing the river, you looked at us and you turned your face because you saw us as a girl. You did not see us as a soul. And the soul is neither male nor female. So this kind of personality appeared in this world as a son of Vyasadeva. And after this, Sukadeva Goswami, 16 years boy, he was running very fast. Vyasadevji was an old man. He couldn't cope up with the speed of his son, Sukadeva Goswami. So soon, Sukadeva Goswami disappeared from his sight. And as a father, he wanted Sukadeva Goswami to come back to his house. So then Vyasadevji, he sent some of his disciples to the forest, and he said to them that if you happen to find my son, recite Srimad Bhagavatam. So on one good day, disciples found Sukadeva Goswami, and they recited 2 verses. And those are very famous verses. The first one is 3.2.23. It says, Aho bakiyam stanakalukutam jigham sayapayadapi yasadvi lebhe gatim dhatri muchitam tatonyam kamvadayalum sharanam vrajema. So this verse talks about the extent of merciful nature of Lord Krishna. This verse says that who can be more merciful than Krishna? And the examples of Krishna's unlimited mercy is that he gave the position of mother to a woman, a demon, who smeared poison on the breast and gave that breast to Lord Krishna. But Lord did not see what she has done, that she has smeared the breast with the poison. Rather, Lord simply saw that she is offering me something in the mood of a mother. And Krishna was so merciful that he liberated Putna and gave her the position of a nurse in her abode. And when Sukadeva Goswami heard this verse, he wanted to hear more. And that time the disciples, they recited another beautiful verse, that is 10.21.5. This is sung by the gopis. And the verse goes, Baraha Pidam Natavara Vapuhu Karanayo Karnikaram Bibrat Vasaha Karnaka Kapisham Vaijayanti Chamala Randhran Veno Adhara Sudhaya Purayan Gopa Vrinde Vrindaranyam Swapadaramanam Pravishat Gita Kirti. This is a very beautiful verse. This verse glorifies Lord Krishna's beauty and the way Lord Krishna dresses up himself. And when Sukadeva Goswami heard these 2 beautiful verses, one talking about the compassion of Lord Krishna, second one is talking about the unlimited beauty of Lord Krishna, he asked the disciples that who taught you these verses? So disciples said, these verses have been taught to us by our spiritual master Vyasadeva. And disciples said that these are not only two verses, there are many more thousands of such verses are there. And as soon as Sukadeva Goswami heard that the Srimad Bhagavatam has got so beautiful verses, immediately he started running back to the house. And finally he reached Vyasadevji's and he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from him. So from this small episode about Sukadeva Goswami's previous birth, appearance, and how did he wander in this world after his appearance, we understand that Sukadeva Goswami was a born transcendentalist. He was full of the Vedic knowledge when he appeared in this world. He was not an ordinary child who would like to play with the toys. Rather, he left everything so that he doesn't get affected by the material things in this world, though he was given the assurance by his father and even by Lord Krishna himself. And he wandered naked throughout this life in this material world. And while he would wander naked, people would mock at him, laugh at him, criticize him. But he was completely indifferent to what people would say. He did not have any duality in his mind. When I say duality, it means respect or disrespect. It means praise or criticism. So he was completely beyond any kind of duality in this world. And while he was wandering in this material world, he would see everyone as a soul, the servant of Krishna. And so he was so pure in his living, in his thinking, that he was able to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention from his father and spiritual master, Srila Vyasadeva. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that the secret of knowing Bhagavatam is to hear Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention. And the rapt attention is possible only when your mind is pure. Your mind will be pure only when your actions are pure. And actions will be pure when your sleeping, eating, mating, defending are pure. So here we see the example of Sukadeva Goswami, that his living was so simple, his thinking was so simple. So that's why he was able to hear Srimad Bhagavatam with a rapt attention from his father. And since he was born a transcendentalist, he was pure in his mind. He heard with rapt attention Srimad Bhagavatam from his father. He was chosen by Shaunak Rishi as a representative of thousands of rishis to recite Srimad Bhagavatam. And in that assembly, Sukadeva Goswami's father and spiritual master was present. And not only Sukadeva Goswami's and father and spiritual master Vyasadeva was present, rather the spiritual master of even Vyasadevji, who is Narad Muni, he was also present. And since he recited the Srimad Bhagavatam as it is, what he had heard from his father, he spoke it as it is to Parikshit Maharaj without any fear. Parikshit Maharaj was not an ordinary king. He was the king of the whole planet. But Sukadeva Goswami spoke the entire Srimad Bhagavatam as it is. And number of times, Sukadeva Goswami mentioned one thing: surrender unto Krishna, surrender unto Krishna, surrender to Krishna. So speaking Bhagavatam as it is and telling the people, just surrender unto Krishna, just surrender unto Krishna, is not an ordinary thing. It requires a lot of courage. And since Sukadeva Goswami had received the Srimad Bhagavatam from a bona fide person, Vyasadevji, as it is, and he recited the same Srimad Bhagavatam as it is to Parikshit Maharaj, the result was that Parikshit Maharaj got the liberation while he was alive. Before the Takshak Nag came and bite him, he liberated himself. And that Bhagavatam, it continues to liberate and number of people, though it was spoken thousands of years back. So I mentioned the few glories of Sukadeva Goswami because it is necessary to get a glimpse of these glories so that we can dive a bit deep into the mood of the verse which we recited a few moments before. So this verse is a very beautiful verse. This highlights couple of qualities of Sukadeva Goswami. Sa go dohanam matram hi graheshu grah medinam avekshate mahabhaga tirthi kurvams tadashramam. So Sa stands for Sukadeva Goswami, and Go means cows, Dohana means milking, and Matram, it means only. He means certainly. It means all the times. So the meaning of the first line is that the time taken to milk a cow, it means a very short period. And this means that Sukadeva Goswami would stay in a house for a very short period. And what is that period? It's about 30 minutes. It takes about 30 minutes to milk a cow. And the next line it says, Graheshu Graha Medina. Graheshu means in the house, and Graha Medina means householders who are entangled in the material life. And the third thing, Avekshate Mahabhaga. Mahabhaga means very fortunate person. And the fourth line, it says, Tirthi Kurvam Stadashramam. Tirthi means convert the house into a tirtha. Kurvams means to do it. And Tad means that house, the house which he visited. And Ashramam, it means the house which has been called as an ashram. So in a sense, this verse says that Sukadeva Goswami would stay in a materialistic householder's house only 30 minutes. And he would visit that house for 30 minutes just to convert that house into a tirtha. So now we will look at few points behind each line in this verse. So the first line says, Sa go dohanam matram hi. Sukadeva Goswami is a renunciate, he is a sannyasi. So through this verse, he is setting the highest possible standard for a sannyasi. Sukadeva Goswami is giving a message that one should not be attracted to the comforts of the house, of a householder, materialistic householder, even though the comforts have been offered with a devotion. Because there is a risk that the person may get distracted from his ultimate goal of the life. And to avoid the distraction, what person should do? He should stay in the house as minimum as possible. Vrindavan Goswamis, they would not stay under the same tree more than one night. And they were the ministers, couple of them were the ministers in Nawab's assembly. And why they wouldn't stay under the same tree for more than a night? Because they were worried that they may get attached to the tree. Imagine the tree is not in the city, the tree was in a forest, in a jungle. It's 500 years back, not the kind of jungles what we see. But still, they did not want to be attached to even the tree because they thought there is a risk that this may deviate them from their standards of devotional service. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, the spiritual master of His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, he was invited by the king to come and visit his palace. Gaur Kishodas Babaji did not want to visit the palace. But when king requested repeatedly, so Gaur Kishodas Babaji said, I will visit your palace, but you will have to give me the place where I want to stay. So the king said, Maharaj, you can choose any corner in the palace. I will make it available for you. So Gaur Kishodas Babaji said, I simply want to go and stay in your toilet. That was the mood of Gaur Kishodas Babaji. Now see, who would be interested to stay in the toilet? The person who is in the toilet himself is not interested to stay in the toilet, as well as the person who is outside the toilet, he is also not interested to stay in the toilet. So Gaur Kishodas Babaji mood was that staying in the mid of stool and urine is much better than staying in the mid of the luxuries of that palace. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, it's mentioned very nicely that one should wander from one place to another place as a honeybee. Honeybee, what is the nature of honeybee? The nature of an average or the general nature of a honeybee is that it would fly from one flower to another flower, take the nectar and leave the flower. But sometimes the honeybee gets attracted to the lotus flower fragrance. So that honeybee would linger around that lotus flower, and what happens that soon there is a sunset, and at the time of sunset, the lotus flower closes it itself. And then the honeybee gets trapped into the lotus flower and loses the life. So, sa go dohanam matram hi. From this, we understand that we should not stick to any place for a long time unnecessarily, particularly the place where we have the luxuries, the place where we get the things what we wanted to have, but we could not get those things in. So, sa go dohanam matram hi. The second line, it says graheshu graha medinam. Now, who is the graha medi? In simple words, the person who is too much attached to the materialistic life is a graha medi. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, first chapter, the verse number 2, 3, 4. These talks about the graha medi. What is the nature of a graha medi and what is the living style of a graha medi. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and we must know those verses. So there Sukadeva Goswami says that Shrota Vyadini Rajendra Nranam Santi Sahasrasha Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Graheshu Graha Medinam. So 2.1.2. There the fourth line, the same thing, Graheshu Graha Medinam. And there Sukadeva Goswami is explaining who is a Graha Medi. And the very first thing, Shrota Vyadini Rajendra Nranam Santi Sahasrasha. The materialistic householder is a person who has thousands of things to hear. Who will find the time to hear a number of material things in this material world? And he is so much engrossed in hearing those things that he does not have any time to hear something which is ultimately good for himself, which will bring something ultimate auspiciousness for himself or herself. And we know what is that? Something which brings ultimate good for everyone. That is hearing and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. So the first characteristics of a materialistic, completely entangled householder is that he won't find any time to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And one thing we should remember, that there are 9 limbs of the devotion service. Shranam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Vandanam, Archanam, Sakyam, Dasyam, Atma, Sakya Nivedanam. And of all these limbs of devotion service, the most important thing is the hearing. We should endeavor as much as we can do to develop our attraction for hearing Lord's glories, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Because at the time of our final moments, we won't be able to perform any devotion service other than hearing. All the senses of our body would stop functioning unless we are very fortunate. The only one sense which will remain active is the sense of hearing. There may be some exceptions to this. Suppose someone is a deaf, won't be able to hear. But still, if he is sincere about hearing, if he has got even little attraction to Srimad Bhagavatam, then still that hearing will be beneficial. So we must remember that hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is not an ordinary thing. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we are preparing for our final examination. So Sukadeva Goswami says, Shrota Vyadini Rajendra Nirnam Santi Sahasrasha Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Graheshu Graha Medinam. They've got thousands of matters for hearing and they don't have any time to hear about their own Atma Tattva. And then he describes the activities of an householder. It's very beautiful verse. It says, Nidraya hriyate naktam vyavayena cha va vayaha diva charte haya rajan kutumba bharanenava. So he says a householder would do generally 2 things in the night. Either he would sleep or associate to produce the children. And in the daytime, a householder will be busy in 2 things. Charte haya rajan. Artha means earning money. And second, kutumba bharnenava. Kutumba bharna means maintaining the family members. It's so true. It's so true what is said in the Bhagavatam. There is no exception to this. Every householder is busy in one way or other way in one of the 2 activities, earning the money and maintaining the family in the daytime, and in the night, sleeping or doing the things to produce the children. And then Sukadeva Goswami says, Deha patya kalatradeshu atma sanyashu asasu api tesham pramatto nidhanam pashyan api na pashyati. Sukadeva Goswami says, Deha patya kalatradeshu. Deha means body, apatya means children, kalatra means wife. Adi means the things related to my body, children, and my wife. Deha patya kalatradeshu atma sanyashu asatsu api. So Sukadeva Goswami says, the body, children, the wife, things related to all these, my body, wife, children, they are asad, they are temporary. And all these are fallible soldiers. Atma Sanyeshu. See, it is so beautiful. The Bhagavatam compares a body, children, wife as a fallible soldiers. Why? Because the material world is like a place of battle where each and everyone has to struggle to survive. What a soldier will do in the battlefield? The soldier will have to struggle to save his life and fight with others. So same thing, this material world, everyone is struggling for his or her survival. So deha patya kalatradishu atma sanyasu asatsu api tesham pramatto nidhanam. And it says pramatta. Pramatta means that the householder, he knows that my body, my wife, my children, etc., they are all fallible soldiers. But still he is overly attached with them. And tesham pramatto nidhanam, and he forgets that they are all going to die, including himself. And the last line is even more beautiful. Pashyan apina pashyati. Pashyan means experience. The householder has seen that so many people have lost their lives in this world. Nobody will stay here permanently, including himself. But still, he can't see his imminent death and remain engrossed with his family, with his own body, and within no time, the Yamraja will come and take away the life of the person. And in 2.1.2, Srila Prabhupada explains the difference between a Grhastha and Graha Medhi. Many times we call ourselves Grhastha, but Bhagavatam gives the definition of a Grhastha. Who is a Grhastha? Prabhupada says a Grhastha is the one who lives with his wife and children transcendently, in a transcendental manner, for the purpose of serving Krishna and devotees. And who is a Grahamedhi? Prabhupada says the person who lives only for the benefit of his own body or for the benefit of his wife and children, friends and relatives. He is a Grahamedhi. So we should reflect on this point, Graheshu Grahamedinam, that to what extent, to what degree, or Grahamedhi. But one thing we should remember, that we are not a pure Grahamedhi, because of one very simple reason, because we have found time to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So we don't fit in the first category, what Sukadeva Goswami says, Shrota Vyadini Rajendra Nirdam Santri Sahasrasha. So although we are not finding enough time, but still we are trying to find the time to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should congratulate ourselves that we are not purely a Grahamedhi. We are between Grhastha and Grahamedhi. And the third thing, it says, Avekshate Mahabhaga. Sukadeva Goswami has been addressed as Mahabhaga, means most fortunate person. Now, fortunate word has come from fortune. In this world, who do we call a fortunate person? If someone has got a degree, say from Harvard University, we call him a fortunate person. Someone has got a very beautiful face, we call him a fortunate person. Someone is very powerful, we call him fortunate person. Someone is very rich, we call him very fortunate person. Very palatial house, call a fortunate person. But Sukadeva Goswami did not have any of these things, due to which we call a person as a fortunate person in this world. But still he is called not only fortunate, Mahabhaga, means great fortunate person. And why he has been called as a Mahabhaga, a great fortunate person? It's simply because of his detachment from unnecessary things, simply because he heard the Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention from his father, spiritual master, simply because he recited the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj as it is with a compassion. So these things are the real fortune which we should try to have in our life. And the fourth thing, Tirthi Kurvams Tad Ashramam. Sukadeva Goswami would visit a materialistic householder's house just for 30 minutes. But for what? Just to convert that house into a tirtha. Otherwise, he did not have any interest at all to visit any householder's house. And this is the sign of compassion, of the extreme compassion of a devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. So we discussed a few days back a very beautiful verse, Bhavad Vida Bhagavata. Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho, Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani, Swantastena Gadabrata. This verse we learn the power of a devotee. The devotees are so powerful that they themselves are Tirtha personified. They can convert any place into a holy place, and they always carry Krishna in their heart. And here is an example of Sukadeva Goswami. Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani. And here it says, Tirthi Kurvams Tad Ashramam. It's the same thing. So in conclusion, now let's reflect upon the key messages we get from this verse. The first thing, we learned that Sukadeva Goswami was assured by his father, and more than the father, Lord Krishna himself, that he won't get affected by Maya. Maya will not catch him. But still, he was so much fearful of Maya, the material attractions, that he did not want to stay in the house. As soon as he appeared, he started running away from the house. The message we get from this is that we should always be fearful of Maya, the material attractions around us. Material attractions are there to distract us from our devotion service. They all look very attractive, but they are deceptive in nature. Material attractions will give us a false assurance that they would be able to give us some protection, some comfort, some convenience in the life. But that doesn't happen. Duryodhana is one of the best examples. He got attracted to the Maya. And what is that Maya? He got attracted to Krishna's army, Krishna's Sena. And he thought that Krishna's army, which is a Maya, another form of Maya, would be able to protect him. But we know what was the end result. So the army looked very attractive. But what was the end result? That was a false protection. That was the illusion created by that army. The second thing, the Sukadeva Goswami, he lived with minimal things. He would wear just one kopin, tiny piece of cloth around his waist. In the same situation, he would wander and did not have any house, did not have any other material possessions. So he was a renunciate. But still, it gives us a message that we should try to live with minimum material things, as minimum as possible. Imagine we have to travel in the train. So the minimum baggage we carry, the easier it is to board in the train and have a comfortable journey in the train. And imagine if we have so many baggages with us, then our boarding and stay as well as off-boarding will be painful. Staying with minimum things help us to purify our mind. And how our mind is purified? If we live with the minimum things, then we will have minimal anxieties in our life. Imagine a person who has got a small amount of money and just one house. And imagine a person who has got a number of houses and millions of dirham in the bank. Who will be more worried about protecting the material possessions? The person who has more material possessions will always be in great anxieties. If we compare a beggar who sleeps on the street and the person who has got millions of dollars, so we will come to the conclusion that the person who sleeps on the street has got much less anxiety than the person who has got millions of dollars. The third thing, if our actions and minds are pure, then the purity will change the perception of other people. Sukadeva Goswami did not speak anything to the naked girls. Vyasdevji did not speak anything to those girls. But still, Sukadeva Goswami carried so much purity in his mind that changed the perception of the young girls. The fourth thing, Sukadeva Goswami did not stay in any householder house for more than 30 minutes. So the message we get that we should not overstay in the mid of luxuries. We should come out of those luxurious environment as soon as possible. And this applies particularly to the house where the Lord's Shravanam Kirtanam, where the Krishna's glories are not heard or sung. The fifth thing we learn from Sukadeva Goswami's power, that Sukadeva Goswami had the power to convert any house into a tirtha. He would visit a householder just for the purpose of converting that house into a tirtha. So the message we get that the focus of our relationship with each and everyone in this material world, including our family members, should be on one thing. How can I uplift or improve the consciousness of the particular person with whom I am interacting in? And it's not an easy thing, but we should try to have this focus in our mind whenever we interact with anybody, and particularly when we visit someone's house. And the sixth thing, Tirthi Kurvan Tad Ashramam. This line tells us one more thing, that if pure devotee visits a house, the house gets converted into a holy place, a tirtha. So this gives us a message that we should conduct satsang in our house as much as possible, given the time, place, circumstances, because the devotees will purify the house. A single devotee may not have the strength to purify the house, but the collective strength of all the devotees carry a lot of power to purify the house and purify our consciousness. And the seventh thing, that we should not underestimate the power of hearing and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam attracts even a liberated person like Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami was a born transcendentalist. He already knew the Vedic knowledge, but still he heard just 2 verses and he wanted to hear more and more. And not only he wanted to hear more and more, rather he sat down on the bank of the Ganges and went on reciting Bhagavatam for 7 days continuously without eating and sleeping. So with these words, I would like to conclude the session. And if the devotees have some time, we can reflect on the few things what we discussed today.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Today's
Krishna.
session was a wonderful session. Prabhuji, I missed few points. If you could help me recalling those. First, where you said Srila Prabhupada explained difference between Grihastha and Grihmedi, where Grihastha you explained living with wife, children in a transcendental way to serve Krishna. And
Yeah.
Grihmedi, wife, children, friends, and relatives. Then I missed some points. What
No,
was those things?
Grihmedi means who lives only for the benefit of his body and the extension of body. Extension of body means the wife, children, friends, relatives, etc.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanat Pranam. The first point which you mentioned, we should always be afraid of material attachments. It will come to attract us, but we should not get attracted. Like the example of Sukadeva Swami Maharaj, like how he was blessed by his father, that even such an exalted personality, still he was afraid of Maya. Then what we can think of jivas like us, Prabhuji? So that is a very powerful point. Like we should always get scared or get afraid of Maya.
Thank you. We will assemble again tomorrow evening. We will take up the 5th chapter from the first canto, and we will recite the verses. And there are 40 verses, and following those verses recitation, we will have an overview of the 5th chapter, and we will see the message, what we get from the 5th chapter. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo.